Welcome to Forthright Gaming Podcast, gaming content made for gamers by gamers. This week we're going to be talking about Xbox Game Pass, and here with me is my co-host David. Say hi, David, as you drink your drink.
Hello.
Yes. So this week's show is a little bit different, right? We've been talking about games and gaming franchises and how they've been influential in the industry and how they've changed stuff. Today we're not necessarily talking about a game. We're going to be talking about a service, which is Xbox Game Pass. Like I said, it might not be a franchise or a video game, but it is something that I believe will actually and has actually kind of changed the landscape of how the industry is going to work moving forward. But first, let's lay out some of the facts with Game Pass if you're not familiar, all right? So Xbox Game Pass launched June 1st in 2017. It was Xbox initiative of, hey, we're going to give you 100 games every month, or 100 games that you have access to for a monthly subscription. And for the cherry on the top, they're going to throw in every Microsoft exclusive title was going to be available on Game Pass at launch day. So basically, like a Netflix service, Netflix is where you subscribe, you get a bunch of movies, but the one cherry on the top here was that games like Halo or Gears of War and stuff like that was first party made by Microsoft Studios or by any of the 2 studios Microsoft had acquired, will be on Game Pass day one. Don't have to wait a couple days. Don't have to wait. At launch, it will be there. So that is the basic gist of what Game Pass is that subscription service. Now they kind of changed it since then to where it was originally $9.99 a month, and you got 100 games. To now it's $14.99 a month, and they do have what's called Game Pass Ultimate, which now includes the Xbox Live service as well, which is what you use to play multiplayer, send messages, talk, and chat to people online. As well as they've gone well above their 100 game limit that they kind of originally suggested was there. They now have over 300 titles, including what EA Play has brought to the offer since they basically consumed the EA Play service. Now, I didn't jump on this when it first came out. I think I purchased it like a year or two in. When did you end up getting Game Pass?
So, funny story. I want to say I got it at the end of 2019, around November. And I caught whiff of people talking on Twitter about how you could basically put on up to 3 years of Xbox Live on your account and then convert over to Game Pass because it automatically converted 1-to-1, and then it gave you an extra month. So I just loaded it up with another 2 years because I was under a year and converted it over. And I mean, now I've had Game Pass and it doesn't expire until 2022. So it's been a good ride so far, kind of having some options to play games, especially with, our friends up. We live in California now. Obviously we used to live near you in the Redmond area, but it's nice to have some multiplayer games we can play with some friends, and we don't have to buy the game. Even if we don't like it, we could at least try something out, kind of like an arcade, but through your digital service.
Yeah, and you're right, and that's what you just said. Try games out is one of the key things that they used in the strategy of Game Pass, which was because they was the bar to access and cost was no longer there. People are likely to try games outside the genres that they know, right? Because when you're budgeting your money and you have a budget and you're living tight, when you buy a game, you're going to buy a game that you know you're going to play and you're going to like and you're going to keep playing it for hours and hours. It's a risk to spend that $60 on a title that you don't know and then it end up sucking and they try to trade it in and they give you like $5 for it. So like people who are definitely on a budget definitely think about what games they're going to get. This opened it up to where people who mainly played first-person shooters might try RPGs and try puzzles and other different games in the store or other genres in the industry that they might normally not try. And that actually is a stat that they noticed go up, that people were playing more in different games who have Game Pass. Now, like you said, when you jumped on it, you did and got the conversion. Was the conversion just $1 or was it more back then?
Well, usually around Black Friday they'll do get 3 months for $1. I don't know if that deal's still going on for new subscribers, but that's what it was for me. So you get an additional 3 months for $1, and then every month of gold would automatically convert to 1 month of Ultimate Game Pass. I don't know if the Ultimate Game Pass conversion also is true. I know we've talked about this offline, but there's a conversation about, for a moment, they raised the prices on Game Pass, and then people were kind of talking about how 6 months of Xbox Live Gold converts, I'm sorry, a year of Xbox Live Gold converts to 6 months Live Ultimate Game Pass, and how they wanted to change the prices on Xbox Live Gold so that it coincided with the match pricing of Game Pass Ultimate. So I don't really know if that part still holds true. If you convert it 1 month to 1 month, I'm assuming if you're a new member, you still get the deal for $1, whether it's 1 month or 3 months. Plus, everything converts automatically over. Don't know if that still holds true if you cancel
that
and renew
might
as well.
still be the case if you just convert to Game Pass, because there's Game Pass and there's Game Pass Ultimate, which is $15 a month. The Ultimate basically gives you access to the PC games that come up for Game Pass, and it ties in Xbox Live as well with the whole price. So if you convert a year of gold over to Game Pass Ultimate, it's only actually 4 months. So the conversion kind of sucks there in the future. And what they ended up doing to get a lot of people to get Ultimate was, what if you have Game Pass now, or if you didn't have Game Pass, you could update to Ultimate for $1, and they would just convert all your stocked up time over. Now you have to kind of buy multiple year cards in order to boost up your Game Pass Ultimate subscription as far in the future as you want. But that is probably like the biggest push at getting people to sign on. And when at first, I thought nothing of that, but now after I heard what Phil Spencer said explaining about how Game Pass actually works, makes so much more sense now. And that's the fact that with the Game Pass service, and you're getting all these 100 plus, or actually 300 plus games for free and have access with your monthly subscription. The biggest question I always have is like, how does this work for developers? Like, how are they gonna, if I launch my game day one on Game Pass and people are getting for a subscription, am I getting paid for like out of usage, or are you getting paid out of how many times it's downloaded, or stuff like that? And Phil Spencer had a interview with The Verge back in November, and he actually kind of explained that Microsoft doesn't have a set way of how they pay developers for this service. So if a developer signs on, it's kind of up to the developer to kind of make terms. And they have some people who are like, hey, we've already sold as many copies as we can of the title. We'll put it on your service, and we just want pay based off of time used or downloads. And so how long people are playing the title, or how many people are using it, would result in a pay for them. Or they just say, hey, give us this one lump sum, and then you can have the game on Game Pass. Now, some other groups, what they've done, and I would think this probably goes for some more indie developers or some third-party developers, they sit there and say, hey, we want your game on Game Pass. We'll pay for the complete production cost of your title. So that's your labor, equipment, design, product time. They'll pay the entire bill of the title, and the title just launches exclusively on Game Pass. Now, when you think about that, they made a big push with the service, which is it's a very good deal for anybody who's a big gaming enthusiast, right? So everybody's going to jump over to Game Pass. The few holdouts who didn't, they did it all for the $1, right? And got a ton of extra features and whatnot with it, and wrapped their whole live bill all into one nice package. With that, they have I think now 15 million subscribers to Game Pass Ultimate. That means that they make $2.7 billion a year just in subscriptions. So when you hear that Microsoft is now going to some studios or some developers and saying, hey, we'll front your production bill and just give us the game, kind of changes the game completely in a way that I think most people who have been talking about Game Pass lately and all the great games that are showing up on there, they are not realizing this one aspect. And the funny thing is that Netflix basically does this, and that's how you get Netflix shows, right? How Netflix can spend money on The Witcher and on making their own movies and stuff like that, right? Because they just have a constant yearly budget that they can constantly pull from that which will fluctuate mildly throughout it, right? Only reason why I never thought of it before like this is because Netflix has not made the blockbuster huge movie that everybody's talking, right? It's very niche things that they make. That's because with this pay process of how that works, Microsoft has now opened it up to where developers no longer have to worry about a publisher schedule, where publishers sitting there pushing them saying, hey, you need to hit this deadline. Hey, we need to make sure we throw monetization in there so we can make some more money. We got to put more loot boxes so we can get people addicted to stuff. Like throwing all that crap in there that gamers don't like. They no longer have to do that because you no longer have to pitch a game to a publisher and also pitch them what your projection profits are. Because Microsoft now just became one of the biggest they were a publisher, but they became an even more powerful publisher now because not only can people pitch them games that they're going to look at, all right, what's the bottom line profit from this? Is Call of Duty going to sell 250 million copies in the first day or something? Okay, that'll make us profit. They can now look at it as like, well, we got $2.7 billion. We'll pay for your game. Who cares what it does? We still got $2.7 billion at the end of the year anyway. So that gives the ability for games for what I feel like to just be more what they should be, which is art, right? Like we went from a point where games were developed to look because of the technical marvel what they could do, right? It was all about gameplay. The first video game was chase the dot on the screen, so it was the interactivity that was what was pushing stuff. And then it was if you go past like Atari and all that and start hitting Nintendo, then it was like, oh, there's stories that we can tell, and it gets more detailed. And then I feel like definitely last generation and the 360 generation is where it started, is where monetization just became the focus of how people build games or how publishers want games to be made. So that's why we ended with games with DLCs for horse armor that you had to pay for that was ridiculous and useless, and the cosmetics, and seeing that customers would buy this stuff. So now all our games are like, here's gameplay and a loot box system. Use it. That's basically what pushes a lot of publishers. Now we can have games that will just tell good stories because they're not going to have to be focused on what the end profit of it is. The flip side of this for the developers and what they've reported back is that they've seen 20% increase in sales of their titles because people are playing the games on Game Pass and they're saying, hey, David, go download this game. Let's play it together. And the other people want to have the game just in case it leaves Game Pass. They end up buying it. So people are spending more. I think the stat was 20%. Game Pass members spend 20% more than normal Xbox Live members or normal people in the ecosystem.
Correct. That was literally published on March 22nd, and we're recording on April 5th. So, yeah, that is accurate. And one thing I wanted to add, and I was trying to pull up the article because I remember reading this like sometime during Christmas time and Thanksgiving last year of 2020, where a developer was talking about how their game was out. It was somewhere around 6 months to a year, and they were saying that when their game was on Game Pass, they still saw sales boosts because people would gift the game to people they know who didn't have Game Pass. And then they also had DLC, which then also saw a sales spike because if people already have the game, it's much more accessible to just make a $2, $5 purchase on Game Pass DLC. Plus, you already get what is a 10%, 20% discount on Game Pass content. So getting somebody a gift of like Dead by Daylight, especially when it's on sale, I can buy it from my friends for like $8 instead of paying the full $30. So that's an additional benefit you get there. But one thing I feel like is worth stating is my brother. It's him and his son, right? His daughter and his wife don't really play games, but so it's basically just him and his son. It gives him a way to sign up for one subscription because the way Xbox One works and Xbox Series X now is all your licenses, including your Game Pass, persist on the single console on Xbox One generation and the Xbox X Series X generation. Now, the benefit of that is that console can be played by anybody and can download any of the games in the Game Pass suite on that console. If you are the owner of the Game Pass subscription, you can go to another Xbox One, Xbox Series X, download any games from Game Pass, and as long as you're signed in, you will maintain access to those games. So from his side, he benefits because his son gets to play Minecraft, and he gets to play the other shooter games like Halo and whatnot, and he actually just started introducing the Halo. So It's a good way to play a lot of games on a budget, especially if you're not just trying to suffice one gamer, but multiple gamers on either a single console or in a single ecosystem. In this case, which is
Yeah, and
Xbox.
that's the great thing because it's games on a budget, and the realization is, especially as we get older, is that hey, we have more important things to spend money on. We have bills and whatnot we have to focus on. So I can't just go blow $200 or something in games one month because of all the all the AAA titles have come out. But this now eliminates that, especially when Microsoft's AAA titles that you want are going to be on Game Pass. Some of the EA Plus games are going to be there probably a couple months after they come out, and any games that Microsoft can go to dev and say, "Hey, we're going to do this deal for you. Come put it on Game Pass," and people will go for it. Now, the funny, interesting thing also is that, obviously Game Pass isn't the only thing out there, right? There's PlayStation Plus, I believe, which is what PlayStation has. But I feel like when Netflix first started, like we all thought, okay, it's just taking the DVD rental model and putting it online, so you just stream stuff. And we weren't really thinking of, oh, they're going to make new content and or throw their own stuff in there, or throw something in there that was going to really entice people to join up, right? When PlayStation Plus I think when Sony looked at Game Pass, they thought of it the same way because they said, okay, cool, we're gonna put a few of our like popular titles that are old on out here and give those away for free every month, and give you a few titles that you can download and stuff. So with how PlayStation Plus works, like they didn't offer as many games to begin with, and then also there's now a caveat with their system is that only some of the games you can download. The other games you have to stream. You have to stream it to your console, which, depending on your internet speed and whatnot, could cause lag in playing them. So it's not even a full, hey, the God of War series, here it is, download it and play it on your console. It's, all right, here's one God of War game. The other ones you have to stream to your console, and hopefully your internet is fast enough that you don't have any delays or anything. So that's kind of a downside to it. And then what makes the even bigger kick in the nuts to Sony is that Game Pass also just announced that they're releasing a Sony game on Game Pass day one with the MLB The Show 2 is made by San Diego Studio, which is a Sony Interactive studio. So it's a first-party Sony studio. They're putting their game day one on Game Pass. I mean, I guess the logic there is you get more users, more people playing your game, but if I have it on Xbox, why would I switch over to Sony to buy? Why would I buy a Sony PlayStation to play it?
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting one to me, even because I know that, and I don't know if this is still true, but they had exclusivity with the MLB to produce a video game that replicates the MLB gaming. And when they had that exclusivity, a lot of people kind of were like, all right, I guess I'm locked into Sony's platforms. But now you're not really locked into it. So from a sports perspective, right? FIFA belongs to EA, Madden belongs to EA. Those two are cross-platform. If you're a baseball fan too and you want to play other sports games, now you can actually choose the Xbox as part of that ecosystem that you can play your sports games in. Now, whether or not you have the time to invest in that much sports gaming is up to you. But I do think that's interesting that you now have the option. But I'm honestly curious if they're going to do anything like what they've done with Call of Duty when Activision signed that, I guess, timed exclusivity, right? Or same thing with Destiny, right? Where there was some content hitting on the PlayStation ahead of the Xbox. I think that yet remains to be seen, as well as if it's, more buggy than the PlayStation version.
Yeah, so that raises some questions as to Sony who's trying to compete here. And like Sony spent the last generation claiming that exclusives are what sells consoles. They've been selling their consoles strictly almost on the advertising of come to PlayStation, we have all the exclusives, which has definitely been the truth in the past generation, right? PlayStation 4 has a lot of really good exclusive games, but now Microsoft kind of came out in the last generation saying, hey, we're going to go a different way. We want people to play games wherever they want to play games at. So they started doing Xbox games with Play Anywhere on your PC. And now with where they are now, you can kind of see, okay, all the stuff that they're doing back then, they were playing this chess game, and they're just 10 moves ahead of Sony, and they were playing the long con where, like, man, you guys are sucking. You're buying all these studios, but we have no games. You've sitting here and you're investing in all this stuff, but we still don't have any exclusives. Where are all our exclusives, right? And then boom comes 2021. We don't have a ton of exclusives yet, but a lot of those studios should be dropping a bunch of titles within the next year and a half. I think that Microsoft grabbed. They grab Bethesda for I think $7 billion, and say, okay, all Bethesda's games are going to be anywhere Game Pass is available at. So Sony gets to have their couple exclusives that they have with that already, but any games moving forward, they're always all going to be on Game Pass, which makes you think, Sony putting MLB The Show on Game Pass, are they going to adopt it and let Game Pass be on their platform? If they do that, then they would be able to have Bethesda titles that they so desperately want, but you'd also be just feeding people into the Microsoft ecosystem, which would be crazy. I totally can't see that happening, but that's one of the theories going around.
I think it's also worth mentioning that, to me, I think the best purchase so far has been limited to 2 studios, in my opinion, and that's got to be Obsidian Entertainment and oh my God, their name is escaping me. Tim Schafer's studio.
Oh, Double Fine.
Double Fine, thank you. Double Fine, I really like a lot of their backlog games. Full Throttle. Oh my God,
There's Brutal Legends, Grim Fandango.
Grim Fandango. Brutal Legends I didn't personally enjoy, but Grim Fandango was really good. I mean, Day of the Tentacle, if you're into the old Scum games, right? Those who know what that is. They make a lot of really good, fun games. And Obsidian just came out recently with Outer Worlds, which I feel like is a good alternative option for those who are kind of looking for something that's like a Fallout, Mass Effect sort of game. Probably not as up to par as Mass Effect. When you say Mass Effect, you're kind of making some lofty claims, but I would say it's still really enjoyable. Obsidian's narratives are very well executed. People often talk about how New Vegas was their preferred Fallout 3. Granted, it was buggy. I'm not going to get into that, but I would say that there's a lot of good things that you could see coming from Obsidian and from Double Fine, and that's on top of Bethesda's Doom. Just talking about what you even have access from Bethesda alone is a lot, but you also still have all the games from EA Play. We were discussing a moment ago before we jumped on. You get Star Wars, you get Madden, you get FIFA, you get Need for Speed, Heat, NHL. So there's a lot of games you get offered through EA Play, and that's, not even getting into Bethesda, where you get Doom, you get Dishonored, the Remastered Edition, Oblivion, Morrowind, Prey, Fallout 4, Wolfenstein, The New Order, Old Blood. And you get a lot of these games too, you also get on the PC, right? Like Elder Scrolls Skyrim, the special edition, you can also get that on PC. I don't know if the saves work between platforms because I've only played it on Xbox One, but that's great to know that you have options to play between both platforms. And like I said with my brother, right? Let's say you play on a PC, your son plays on the Xbox, no problem. Play it on the PC, have your son play on the Xbox, and you can have both and enjoy them because, you're having one dedicated system do each thing for you.
Yeah, the versatility that you can do with Game Pass was another great selling point of it. As much as this is a Game Pass commercial for a podcast, I'll get into the real meat here is what you got to look at. This is that this is the Hulu of video games, right? So what's going to happen in the future? We already had things like EA Play, and Ubisoft has their Uplay Club, and these developers have some of these developers have their own subscription services or groups they want you to join so they can kind of keep tabs on their customers, but they'll reward them with being able to have access to games and whatnot. But gamers don't want to have multiple launchers on their PC. They don't want to have multiple subscriptions either. If Sony doesn't step up their game with how they deliver their stuff, Xbox is going to be the one-all be-all streaming service for getting your games to the most people. And people will just jump into getting Game Pass so that they can play a ton of different games, all just for a simple monthly subscription. They can download their games so they get to play it as if they own it anyway, without any possible lag from a sync.
One thing I was going to add, because you made me think about this as you were saying that, is if you have a PS5, even if they had a Game Pass on PlayStation, it's not even worth it. You only have it's like a weird amount of memory space on the hard drive, and you can't expand that. So if If you want to experiment with games, Xbox Series X, right? You've mentioned how quick everything loads. You have a terabyte, add another terabyte, boom, you got like 2 terabytes ready to go. You could just download a bunch of games, try them out, delete what you don't like. But if you have a PS5, you're not going to get very far. You're only going to download so much that you can install, and you're going to be quickly deleting and installing all the time. So PlayStation not only doesn't have like just the software and networking infrastructure, the hardware doesn't even really support that model, at least at this time.
Yeah, they don't have to. They have to re-implement being able to just plug in a USB external drive, which was baffling why that wasn't included anyway. Because like, Xbox, I think 360 lets you plug in a drive. The Xbox One lets you plug in any regular hard drive into it via USB, and the Xbox Series X also kept that same capability. So you could basically take all your games and just plug it in and play. Plus, Microsoft's big push for backwards compatibility means that they not only were able to launch a console this year without having to have a ton of AAA games lined up for launch, they're able to launch it saying, "Hey, we have a console launch with over 1,000 titles available on it," because they can include what the new games are and all the back catalog for the last 2 generations, basically. So they're offering so much more bang for its buck, and them becoming more like, "Hey, we're going to be a hub, and we're also going to help pay developers to to make games." Things that would never, ever fly on a pitch meeting are now being made. Back in the day, those things were like the indie games that were really crappy for like $2 or $3. But now you can have a game where Microsoft can say, "Hey, again, we have $2.7 billion, right? How much does it cost to make a AAA game? 60 to 80 million? Cool. Let's front that money." And they can literally put out 40 AAA titles a year. We don't get 40 AAA titles every year. We get like maybe 5 or 6 that are AAA, and the other ones are AA or lower, basically. So with this model, and then if they ever get some competition, whether it be whether Steam does something or PlayStation gets to their act together, you have a mega publisher now that can help get lots of things just made and out to the grander audiences. So things like, what's the Imposter game that everybody's playing?
Imposter?
Yeah, there's a game where...
Talking about Secret Neighbor?
No, I'm talking about the one that everybody's playing on PC now. It's the one where there's an imposter and they're killing everybody on a ship or something. I forget what that game was called. God damn it.
I don't apologize.
No. So you have games like Undertale that came out years ago but was to critical acclaim. That's now on Xbox Game Pass. That's something that the majority of people can actually try and experience now and play. I think the Fallout guys are coming as well to Xbox. That's the game a lot of people are playing. And Among Us, that's the game I was thinking of, where you're the imposter. Among Us will be coming as well. So these are games that, like, when they first launched, nobody played. Like, Among Us came out, I think, a year and a half ago, and nobody was playing. It had a low user base, and then Twitch grabbed onto it and started streaming it, and their user base just grew. Things like that now no longer have to be made kind of by a small studio, gets a small release, nobody knows about it, and has to wait for word of mouth. They can now be produced and have marketing and all that through Microsoft, and then boom, they're out there for everybody to see all at once in the front, you know?
Yeah, because you have a good point there. When I log onto the console, it often will recommend one of the tiles new on Game Pass. And it's like, oh, cool, I didn't know that Doom Eternal is now on there. Actually, I remember hearing about the acquisition, but it still had to go through that process to be finalized. I actually didn't know it was finalized until I logged on the Xbox and I saw Doom Eternal was there and I installed it. So there's a lot of good stuff there. And I mean, it's tough because I'm trying to remember that one title that's being developed by that new studio that was formed in, I believe, in Santa Monica. Had really talented people behind it. AAA studio. I think that's a good example of an expensive risk they can take. That title hasn't been talking about, by the way. So, you know, believe me when I say, like, I don't even know what's going to be coming out of that studio. I just know that they're a big studio with heavy talent, very expensive people behind you. So using Game Pass to kind of funnel stuff out is great. I know a lot of people also talked about Microsoft buying Sega a lot. That was heavily rumored for a while on the internet,
I totally
and it
thought that
makes
was gonna. I
sense.
totally
Yeah,
didn't think that was gonna happen. I'm like, Sega doesn't make good games though. Their games that they've come out with have been mess. So I wouldn't buy Sega. I thought the rumor that they're gonna
Yakuza.
buy Ubisoft made more sense. Like, yeah, buy Ubisoft, get their library, and then maybe start making some games that feature women as the main character without having to twist your arm and have a harassment scandal on your back.
Ubisoft actually would have made more sense. I don't know how that the stock buyout would have worked or whatnot and the overall cost. Because I remember Vivendi Universal was involved in a bit in raising their stocks, and then they basically sold everything because Ubisoft stocks was too much. But Sega has kind of put a lot of their chips in the Game Pass bag. They started releasing a lot of the Yakuza games. I believe Bayonetta's in there as well. Um, so it's interesting seeing a lot of these games from big third party publishers also move over as well as part of their business model.
Well, I didn't see the big thing with Yakuza was because Yakuza was a game series that you could only originally play on PlayStation. It was, and I knew some people who swear by the Yakuza series, saying it's so good everybody has to play it. But the only way to play it was you had to buy into that ecosystem. Now you don't. Like, I was seriously looking like, hey, Yakuza, okay, I have a PS4. Should I go back and buy the PlayStation 3 Yakuza games or all the old Yakuza games and play them on the PlayStation? And as soon as I saw that Yakuza Zero showed up on Game Pass, I'm like, oh, I'm pretty sure the other 6 titles are going to show up here sooner or later. And then boom, they all showed up. So it's like I don't have to switch ecosystems. I can play on my Xbox. All the games have achievements added to them, so gamer score goes up, which is also always great. So, like, like I said, this kind of changes. Developers and or publishers are going to have to start thinking of a different way of how to make games, right? Because you look at Activision, Blizzard, right? They constantly fire hundreds of people all throughout the year, even though they make record profits. But they only make games based on the concept of what's it going to bring in a profit when it goes retail, and how's it going to continue to make money. Because that they have shareholders are always going to expect them to make more and more and more money, which means the way they make that meat when their games don't sell or when those microtransaction schemes don't work is they fire people so they can have a higher profit by the end of the year. That's constantly what we've been seeing happen year over year over year. Now with a system where it's like, hey, we don't have to worry about monetization, we can just get more subscribers. Well, the more games they keep adding to Game Pass gives more and more people reasons to join it. It's way easier to convince people to spend $15 a month than to spend $60 or $70 on a video game. And especially in the fall when basically the industry expects us all to spend 50 to 60 bucks on a video game for like 8 games in a 3-month period, because that's when they're all coming out with their AAA titles. So I think the future is we're going to see more things like this. And then it's going to be a fight like with Hulu, like Hulu has with Amazon, right? Who can get what TV networks exclusive to their platform so people will buy it, right? It's then the future for gaming, I think, will eventually turn into it's going to be who can buy the developer to exclusively release on their subscription service, and that's where you're going to end up having final exclusives. Will be either first party, or it's going to be, hey, I paid this developer to exclusively release it on my their games on my service and not yours, which does raise the price on that stuff. But we're seeing that more and more people are buying games, more and more people are playing stuff, so people are spending more money when they don't have to worry about the initial buy-in, which is always a great thing for the industry. So that's just where I see it definitely going. And when I realized that, it's like, oh, wow, we can actually have video games back how they used to be, where they're just trying to tell cool stories and give you cool experiences instead of, okay, cool, we made this game. It's kind of bare bones. The voice acting isn't great. There might be a couple bugs. But, hey, we got these cool outfits for you, or the other half of the game that's all behind this paywall. Just pay us money, and we'll give you the good shit. Like, no. Just make a really cool game to get with. And that's kind of like, I'd say a good example of that is Outriders. That's another experiment that's basically happening that probably would not have gotten made without them probably discussing Game Pass months ago before they made their announcement. Because here's a game that's being made that is a multiplayer online shooter, kind of like Destiny, but Destiny relies on microtransactions. Here's a game that has zero microtransactions with it, and they don't plan to have they don't have a roadmap of more stuff coming out. They just made it. Here's the entire game. Here it is, to see how that was going to play, instead of doing this monetization and roadmaps and being delayed and nothing, a game not being complete when you buy it. So, I think we'll get better quality games in the future for this. We'll be able to access gaming cheaper, and more people will be able to get involved with it, which is what everybody's goal seems to be overall. And we'll start seeing this more with TV movies too. Like we kind of a little bit already are with Disney and HBO services, right? A good example is Marvel TV shows like WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They're not filmed on a TV schedule where you have to film an episode in a week. And that's why TV shows have like really crappy special effects. The fight scenes are really poorly choreographed because they can't spend 5 days shooting an action sequence. They have to do it in a couple hours and then move on. With those systems now where they have a constant income of money, they can now just say, okay, film this. We can release it episodically or weekly if we want to. That way we can entice more people to keep joining our platform and keep giving us this big bankroll that we can just keep funding stuff. So you have that with those shows in Disney Plus. The Snyder Cut of Superman is a perfect example of this. That's a movie that would never be made in normal circumstances. Justice League already came out. Warner Brothers would not go back to Zack Snyder and say, hey, go ahead and make another version of this movie and we'll put it out too. Like that wasn't going to happen, right? But because they had a bankroll from the subscription process, they say, okay, make your 4-hour movie, do whatever you want, just make it. And that's why you have a 4-hour movie that still has things where like, they should have cut this. Why is this still here? Because he wanted to put his complete vision out there. Game developers, filmmakers, and artists don't usually get to do that. They usually have to compromise. Now we have a platform or a model where the industry can make money and artists can just be artists again and just make us good quality content. Anything else?
And one thing I was going to say, or a few things here. So what I'm really curious about is what their plans are. Microsoft, when they did, we were discussing earlier about how the price of gold wasn't going to transfer equally, or they were trying to make it cost-wise transfer equally to Game Pass. There was then the discussion immediately about them dropping gold to be required to play online on free-to-play games, right? And then now there's this discussion going on because on the PC, I can chat on the PC without gold with somebody on Xbox, but for the moment, at least, feel free to let me know if this has changed. You can't do it in reverse. I have to have gold to do online gaming and whatnot and do party chat all on an Xbox console.
Yeah, I think they've only changed that with free-to-play weekends or free-to-play, like a free-to-play weekend game, where before it was everybody can download the game and play it for free, but you couldn't chat or anything if you didn't have gold. They've now made it so on those weekends you can. But I think that's because they have to look at that service of Xbox Live, and how do you dismantle that and integrate it into what's coming now? Because the reasons why those things are there is because those were features back in the day, right? Now it's just a common thing. If you're going to play games online, I better be able to talk to people. But back in the day, it was, oh, you can play games online with people. Oh, now you can talk to them by voice chat, and you can easily send messages, where back in Dreamcast days, that wasn't the easiest thing to do. Sitting there with a keyboard having to type out everything you want to say to people, or you had people on your phone line while you were trying to play online with them. So I can totally see them having to figure out that problem, and they'll probably eventually just make live all those features just, hey, here's part of Game Pass Ultimate. And they may try to raise Game Pass Ultimate price a little bit more, but I don't think they could break the $20 mark, not for a few years yet, until quality of gaming goes up, because the push for monetization has definitely pushed quality down, because they've tried to hit due dates, they've tried to hit milestones, and then they get pushed to focus more on the money-making aspect of it, that we get buggy, broken games that need a roadmap to it, and then updates, and then never come out as complete on day one.
Yeah, and this is kind of a side subject, but I feel like it's definitely worth pointing out is Microsoft Rewards program. You and I are both members of the Microsoft Rewards program, and if you play Xbox, I highly recommend you join this program because you can get the Microsoft Rewards app on your Xbox, you can put it on your phone as well, and you can basically every achievement is I believe 50 points, and every week they have challenges, every month they have challenges, and I mean, I've over the last few months I've got about $20 worth, which is perfect. I mean, we were talking about Dead Space recently. I actually bought the DLC, converting my Microsoft reward points into a $10 and change balance on my account, which I then made the purchase to buy Dead Space 3's Awaken DLC. So if you have Game Pass, it's definitely worthwhile to sign up for Microsoft Rewards so you can leverage those points, which you can then convert into Xbox Live money. And one of the things, big reason I bring that up is there's multiple times where the weekly challenge, when you're on a streak, you get more and more points. Eventually I'll hit a point where I get $2.50 just from continuing the streak, right? Well, one of the issues is you have to get 3 achievements. I can't sit there and grind the same game to get all the achievements because some of the achievements take so long, I just don't have the time. But if you have Game Pass, you can kind of just download a few games, get a few achievements, easy peasy, and then you're continuing your streak. And then you can use that to help buy more DLC. You can gift games with it. So there's a lot of added benefits where Game Pass can even kind of help you buy more games, which is interesting approach. But I think it's very worthwhile because Game Pass really is. I recommend it for people who are avid gamers but are on a budget, or you have multiple players in a single household. Then you can have Microsoft Rewards to then earn more money to buy free games and DLC, which makes it even better in terms of being a value purchase.
Honestly, you can actually go online and people have figured out what you have to do with Microsoft Rewards and how to complete stuff so that they never have to pay for Game Pass Ultimate again. There actually are tutorials out there like do these things, make sure you do all the online stuff, and then you'll make enough points every month to buy at least a month card and keep you going. And I don't know if that's like intended to happen or that's just a coincidence because I know like originally when they had rewards they gave you way too many points. I remember one year I ended up with like 85,000 points. I was like, wow. I'm buying a ton of games because you can easily get a $50 game for I usually go wait till I get like 23,000 points was like is like $25 gift card, but back then it was almost it wasn't a point to point conversion, but it was almost like
it definitely had a higher value. I remember that.
I do remember that, and like I remember I was astonished that I had $85 in games to spend or something because of all the points that how it converted over. But like I said, that could be another podcast just going over that. But that's they kind of built a way for people to game the system there and still enjoy and getting more games. With how Game Pass is working and where we can go with the future with this, I think it's just endless. And I'm excited to see where that goes. I think more people are going to play games and more people are going to try things that they would normally try. Like back in the day when we played Nintendo, man, like you would borrow Nintendo games from your neighbors because that's how you would get access to playing a bunch of different games. Because I mean, even then, when the games were $20, my parents wouldn't spend $20 on a Nintendo game. They refuse to do that stuff. So I think
yeah,
go ahead.
Okay. I was just gonna say, I personally listen to another podcast that strictly focuses on Game Pass games, and it's called Game Pass Grab Bag. And I would personally recommend them if you don't really have the time to play a lot of games, but you kind of want to just get some ideas about games you want to play. You could just download their podcast, kind of listen to it. I know Ian talks about some of the games on Game Pass as well, but it's just kind of another option out there for you to use as a tool to find more games you want to play. But they keep adding games to Game Pass every month. It's definitely interesting with the Bethesda games coming on, like with Doom Eternal and whatnot. So it's, to me, I remember thinking when I got Game Pass, I was like, I'm going to sign up. I'm probably going to cancel when this 3 years is up and just go back to gold or whatever it becomes at that point. But I'm feeling a little hard pressed to do it now because it gives me a full library. Once I get an Xbox Series X, I'm going to have that library carry over. I still have my Xbox Ones. So it's it's gonna be tough kind of jumping over off of Xbox Game Pass once you've already built it as part of your your gaming setup.
Yeah, they got you hooked there, man. Just in there playing all their games. So that's our show this week. We want to just talk about Game Pass and explain like this really is a huge value, and as far as from consumers go. Developers get paid what they want because they get to negotiate the terms with Microsoft. Gamers get what they want, and we'll now have a bright future ahead of us of games focusing on what the story and the game should be, and not on how to make money off of it, because that's never where gaming was originally, right? The guy who invented Pong thought it was cool, not hey, how do I monetize this so people keep spending money? If that was what we always thought about, there would be no console industry, right? Because consoles killed the arcade almost.
Well, if I could ask you one thing about Game Pass, what games would you recommend? Because I know my wife loves Peggle 2. I love the original 2016 Doom. Master Chief's another good option, but what would you recommend to people who are thinking about Game Pass?
So, not only will you get like great games like what you just mentioned there, but you'll get to experience some of the biggest franchises in the industry, like the Mass Effect trilogy is on there for the original backwards compatible games from the EA Play. Star Wars Fallen Order is another great single player game to play through. They added Star Wars Squadrons recently, which is a great multiplayer fighter pilot sim game. I'd also say the Dishonored series is a great experience to go through, and Prey was one of the most critically acclaimed games that I think it was Arcane Studios, another one owned by Bethesda, has. And on top of all this, Xbox has FPS boost on on a lot of their titles, a lot of the ones from Bethesda as well. So some of these old games now play in 60 frames a second. So like they're buttery smooth too. So even more reason to jump in. So if you are an Xbox owner, get Game Pass. It's definitely worth your while, and you'll be able to play more and experience more on a budget. If you don't have an Xbox and a PC, Game Pass Ultimate works for that as well, or they have a Game Pass for PC. So they have a bunch of PC games there as well as the ones that are cross-platform. And if you're a PlayStation owner who's sitting there hating on PlayStation, hating on a Game Pass, well, I can understand why. You guys don't have the same thing. If you could find an Xbox, jump in. Otherwise, sorry, you guys got PlayStation Plus, and what they're doing, they were streaming their major titles to you. So we'll catch you next week. Thanks for listening.
Have a good one.
And all music was provided by Scott DW. Please go to scottdw.com to download his music whenever you want.